It's early morning. The sky is still dark, and most of the city hasn't even woken up yet. But somewhere above the clouds, something is already in motion. A formation of fighter jets cuts silently through the air. No lights, no warning, each one carrying weapons designed for a single purpose: to eliminate a target that has shaped an entire nation for decades. And within just a few hours, everything will change. This is the story of how Iran's leadership was targeted, how one of the most powerful figures in the Middle East was killed, and how the world was pushed closer to a much larger conflict. And even now, as new information continues to emerge, the full consequences of this moment are still unfolding. To understand how we got here, you need to go back decades, because this wasn't a sudden event. It was the result of years of tension, conflict, and unfinished business. Back in 1979, Iran underwent a transformation that would reshape its future forever. The country had been ruled by a monarchy, led by a leader closely aligned with Western powers. But that system collapsed, and in its place, a new kind of government emerged, one built around religious authority and a completely different vision for the country. The new leadership rejected Western influence, and almost immediately, relations with the United States and Israel began to deteriorate. What started as political disagreement slowly evolved into something much deeper: an ideological conflict. Over the years, this tension didn't fade, it escalated. Sanctions were imposed, proxy conflicts emerged across the region, and Iran became increasingly involved in supporting groups that directly opposed Israeli and Western interests. But one issue, above all, stood at the center of everything: Iran's nuclear program. Because what was being developed could either power a nation or destroy one. In the early 2000s, reports began to surface that Iran was enriching uranium in facilities that had not been disclosed. This immediately raised alarms, because enriched uranium can serve two purposes: civilian energy or nuclear weapons. Iran consistently denied pursuing nuclear weapons, but trust had already been broken. Behind the scenes, efforts to stop the program intensified. Some were visible, others were not. Cyber attacks disrupted infrastructure. Key figures connected to the program were targeted, and at the diplomatic level, negotiations became increasingly complex. Then, in 2015, something changed. An agreement was reached, a deal that aimed to limit Iran's nuclear capabilities in exchange for economic relief. For a moment, it looked like tensions might finally de-escalate, but that moment didn't last. Just a few years later, the agreement collapsed, and with it, any sense of stability. From that point on, everything began moving in a different direction. Sanctions returned, pressure increased, and both sides began preparing for something far more serious. By the mid-2020s, the situation had reached a breaking point. Iran was facing a severe economic crisis. Its currency weakened rapidly, prices surged, and frustration began spreading among the population. What started as isolated demonstrations quickly turned into something much larger: mass protests, unrest, calls for change, and the government responded with force. Communications were restricted, information became scarce, and the outside world struggled to understand what was really happening inside the country. But while internal pressure was rising, external pressure was building too.
Military presence in the region increased, warnings became more direct, and behind closed doors, last attempts at diplomacy were made. Then came one final meeting, a last attempt to avoid escalation. It failed, and from that moment on, everything was set in motion. Because while the world was still watching the negotiations, plans were already being finalized. Targets were identified, movements were tracked, patterns were studied. For months, intelligence agencies had been gathering data, monitoring routines, analyzing behavior, waiting for the right moment. And eventually, that moment arrived. A high-level meeting, multiple senior officials, all in one place, a rare opportunity, too valuable to ignore. And in just a matter of minutes, the operation would begin.
Just after sunrise, inside a heavily secured government compound in Tehran, some of the most powerful figures in the country are gathered. Senior military officials, security advisors, and at the center of it all, one man. For years, he had remained untouchable, hidden behind layers of protection, constantly moving, never staying in one place for too long. But today was different.
رژیم آمریکا وارد جنگ مستقیم شد چون احساس کرد که اگر وارد نشود رژیم صهیونیستی به کلی نابود خواهد شد. وارد جنگ شد برای اینکه او رو نجات بده.
Because for months, his movements had been tracked, patterns analyzed, locations cross-checked, communications intercepted, and now, for the first time in a long time, everything aligned. Multiple high-ranking officials, a fixed location, a predictable window, a perfect target. Originally, the strike had been planned for nighttime, under darkness, with minimal visibility, but plans changed. This opportunity was too rare, and waiting any longer meant risking everything. So the order was given. Hundreds of kilometers away, fighter jets were already in position. Then, without warning, missiles were launched, precision-guided, high-impact, designed to penetrate deep into reinforced structures. Within minutes, they reach their target. The first explosion hits, a flash of light, followed by a shockwave that tears through the compound. Windows shatter instantly, walls collapse inward, smoke begins rising into the sky. Then a second strike, and a third, each one hitting with calculated precision. Inside the buildings, there's no time to react, no time to escape. What had been a secure meeting turns into chaos in seconds. Different sections of the compound are hit almost simultaneously. In one building, top military officials. In another, national security leadership. And in a separate structure, the primary target, the man who had shaped Iran's direction for decades. The explosion that follows is decisive, a direct hit. And just like that, within less than a minute, the leadership structure of the country is shattered. Moments later, satellite imagery begins to capture the damage. Entire sections of the compound reduced to debris, black smoke rising high above the city, visible from kilometers away. Footage recorded nearby shows the same thing. Thick smoke, sirens, confusion, people trying to understand what just happened. Then, the reports begin to come in. One by one, names are identified. Senior military commanders, top security officials, key figures within the government, and among them, the country's supreme leader, killed in the strike. In just seconds, decades of leadership gone. According to early reports, dozens of high-ranking officials were eliminated in the opening moments of the attack, a coordinated strike designed not just to damage, but to dismantle. This wasn't symbolic, this was structural. But the attack didn't stop there, because this was only the first phase.
Shortly after the initial strike, a second wave begins. Air defense systems surrounding Tehran are targeted and neutralized. Radar installations, missile batteries, command centers, all hit in rapid succession. The goal was clear: remove Iran's ability to respond immediately. And then came the third phase. Dozens, then hundreds of aircraft enter Iranian airspace, one of the largest aerial operations in recent years. Targets expand across the country. Missile storage facilities, military bases, strategic infrastructure, everything that could be used for retaliation is now at risk. Not long after, another force joins the operation. From a different direction, additional strikes begin. Long-range missiles launched from naval positions, targets deep inside the country. This is no longer a single operation, it's a coordinated offensive. Within hours, the entire region is on edge because one question now dominates everything: how will Iran respond?
It doesn't take long, because while the smoke is still rising over Tehran, decisions are already being made. Emergency meetings, military commands activated, and one message spreading across the chain of command: respond. Despite the loss of key leadership, the system doesn't collapse, it adapts. Within hours, remaining officials step in, control is re-established, and a clear position is announced. This attack will not go unanswered.
Brutal military aggression against Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities. It is an outrageous, grave, and unprecedented violation of the fundamental principles of the Charter of the United Nations and international law.
Then, the first missiles are launched, dozens of them, followed by more, and then even more. Across the sky, streaks of light begin to appear, ballistic missiles traveling at high speed, drones moving in coordinated patterns. Targets are no longer limited. This is not a single strike. This is a response across an entire region. Hundreds of missiles are directed toward Israel. Air defense systems activate immediately. Interceptions light up the sky. Some threats are neutralized mid-air. Others make impact. Sirens echo across cities, people rush to shelters, and within minutes, the reality becomes clear. This is no longer an isolated operation. But it doesn't stop there, because Iran doesn't act alone. Allied groups across the region begin to move. In Yemen, forces announce renewed attacks on strategic shipping routes. A critical maritime corridor is suddenly at risk, and that alone has global consequences. Then, new reports start coming in. Explosions, different locations, different countries. In Iraq, projectiles are intercepted near military positions. In the Gulf region, airspace becomes unstable. Airports shut down. Flights are grounded. In multiple locations, infrastructure is hit. Some targets are military, others less clear. And that's where things get complicated, because in fast-moving conflicts like this, information is incomplete, reports conflict, numbers vary, and the full picture takes time to emerge. But one thing is undeniable: the situation is spreading. Several countries begin raising their defense levels. Military systems are placed on high alert. Missile defense networks activate. Governments issue warnings. Some prepare for further escalation. Others consider how to respond. And beyond the region, the rest of the world is watching closely, because conflicts like this don't stay contained. Energy markets react, shipping routes are threatened, and the risk of a broader confrontation starts to grow. At this point, this is no longer just about one strike or one country. This is about momentum, and once that momentum builds, it becomes much harder to stop. Experts begin raising concerns. What if this continues? What if more actors get involved? What if this escalates beyond control? Because history has shown that conflicts rarely stay within their original boundaries. Back and forth strikes continue. Missiles launched, defenses activated, damage assessed.
And while all of this is happening, another layer of the situation begins to unfold, not on the battlefield, but in the political and legal arena. As the strikes continue and the situation grows more unstable, a different kind of battle begins, not with missiles, but with arguments. Because now, the question is no longer just what, it's why it happened. From one perspective, this operation, a preemptive strike, an attempt to eliminate a growing threat before it could fully materialize. Supporters argue that waiting would have only made things worse, that the risk was already too high, and that action was inevitable. But others see it very differently. They argue that the threat was not immediate, that the situation, while tense, was still years away from reaching a critical point, and that this strike was not about necessity, but about opportunity. A moment where one side appeared weaker and vulnerable. And that distinction matters because in international terms, there's a difference between a war of necessity and a war of choice. One is seen as defensive, the other far more controversial. Questions begin to emerge. Was this operation aligned with international law? Did it follow the proper legal framework, or did it bypass it entirely? Even within the countries involved, debate intensifies. Political leaders defend the decision, critics push back, and public opinion becomes divided. Meanwhile, the effects are already spreading beyond politics. Energy markets react almost instantly. Prices begin to rise. Uncertainty grows. Because one critical factor now comes into play, a narrow stretch of water through which a significant portion of the world's oil supply passes. And if that route is disrupted, the consequences won't stay regional. They'll be global. Inside Iran, the reaction is complex. Some see the loss of leadership as the end of an era, others as a moment of grief, and many as the beginning of something uncertain. Because at this point, no one knows what comes next.
A provisional leadership steps in, trying to maintain stability, trying to project control. But behind the scenes, decisions are still being made. And one thing is clear, the desire for retaliation has not disappeared. Strikes continue, responses follow, and the situation remains fluid. Numbers begin to emerge, casualties, damage reports, conflicting information. But even those figures are difficult to verify in real time. Because in moments like this, clarity comes last. And that brings us to the bigger picture. This wasn't just a single operation. It was a turning point, a moment where years of tension finally crossed a line. And once that line is crossed, it's hard to go back. Because history has shown that conflicts like this don't end quickly. They evolve, they expand, and sometimes they reshape the world around them. Right now, the situation is still unfolding. New developments are happening, new decisions are being made, and the full impact has yet to be seen. But one thing is certain, what started with a single strike has already changed everything. If you found this story interesting, you'll probably want to see what comes next, because this is just one of many events that are shaping the world in real time. So if you like this kind of content, give the video a like. There's much more to discover.